Welcome back. More than 500,000 Canadians are living with dementia, according to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. In just over 10 years, that number will surpass 900,000, an increase of 66%. While most cases of dementia are currently not reversible, researchers are increasingly convinced that what we choose to eat may help protect our brains. So we're going to spend some time talking about what we can do to protect our brain health. Dr. Ferland, this is your area of expertise. Tell me a little bit about the research and what we know about what we eat and our diets and how that affects our brain health and memory.
Well, there's been quite a bit of research that was done in the past 25 years. And as was mentioned earlier, food patterns such as the Mediterranean diet or a more recent version of it, the Mind diet, have been shown to offer some protection against cognitive decline, and in some longer studies, the risk of dementia. And when we look at these food patterns, there are really common denominators. They always make the promotion of they promote vegetables. Some specific vegetables at times, just like the cruciferous vegetables, the green leafy vegetables, which are particularly nutrient dense, but also plenty of fruits, especially the berries, which are rich in antioxidants, but also some nuts. Especially the walnuts. There's been a number of studies around walnuts showing their benefit, and there is definitely a strong research that was done, and we have a growing number of good quality publications that show that the way we eat, and it's never too late, the way we eat can protect us eventually against cognitive decline.
Let's talk about some of the categories that we should be avoiding then. What does sugar do to the brain?
Well, I mean, really, when you say sugar, we have to clarify because unfortunately, nutrient fact labels in Canada don't clarify the difference between naturally occurring intact sugar in food versus added sugars to food. So when you're talking about the negative effects of sugar, we're really talking about added sugars. And as we're aging, there's definitely really no benefit to consuming added sugars. Of course, we do. We enjoy it. They're part of, the spectrum of foods that we eat. So it's not about being extremely ultra restrictive, but it's about being mindful and understanding where are the added sugars in your diet.
But how much added sugar is permissible, if you will? I mean, is there a normal amount that you're permitted to consume that won't have a negative effect on your brain or your memory?
That's an excellent question. And unfortunately, where we are, we don't actually have a guideline that actually specifies the difference between added and intact sugars. Unfortunately, here we have a general overarching guideline that says less than 100 grams per day. That could be quite a lot if it's all added sugar, and if it included no added sugar, it could be full of fruits, vegetables, and starchy grains that contain all kinds of wonderful compounds. So it really does need to be clarified. It isn't currently clarified. The rule that I tell my clients and patients is really, as low as you can go.
Yeah.
Can I pipe up? So there's a sugar content in food, but also you can monitor it. An A1C test is a very good snapshot in the last 3 months to see how your body's managed your sugar. Target's usually 5.4. And you could have a slightly, I don't usually about the sugar content in fruits, but you could have a slightly higher sugar diet. But what if you're a very active person? What if you're burning it off? Right? So that's another consideration too.
Well,
right?
and the same goes for carbohydrates, for example. I mean, doesn't your body process carbohydrates the same way it does, say, sugar?
Yes, like
extent.
sugar is one of the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are kind of divided into sugars and fibers.
Rice is sugar.
Yeah, it is. It is a sugar, and we do need that, but we need it in varying and probably different levels as we're aging. And as Dr. JJ mentioned, it also really depends on your activity and what's happening in your lifestyle. So one of the links that we can see from a nutrition perspective with brain health is excessive amounts, in particular of the processed high glycemic carbohydrates, and often processed foods, remember, come with other industrial byproducts, which we haven't researched. Those in high levels as we age definitely seem to have a negative impact on the brain.
Equally as important is what we consume, what we drink. What does alcohol do to the brain?
Oh gosh, so there's been the new guidelines have come out now with the detrimental effects of alcohol, particularly for women, and as it relates to several different types of cancer. As it relates to the brain, it does produce more oxidative stress for the brain. So it is definitely a good idea to keep to those guidelines.
Well, those new
Now,
guidelines were met with a lot of controversy, though. There were quite a
Right,
few
of
people who were
course.
upset by 2 drinks for women a week.
I think people have to think about it, like many things in their life, as a modifiable risk factor, because it is a risk factor. And so it is, again, it's an individual decision, it's a personal decision, it's conversations between you and your care team. But really, they're getting as close to those guidelines as possible, even though it's challenging for some people, is probably going to be beneficial compared to maintaining a very high level of alcohol intake and trying to mitigate the damage.
Final word to you.
Until the guidelines change. I mean, I think in moderation, dry, red wine, source of resveratrol, source of anthocyanidins. I think France would disagree, Spain would disagree, Italy would disagree, South Africa would probably disagree.
Definitely.
A lot of wine-producing countries. In moderation, I have no issues with it in patients.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the foods, superfoods, you should be eating for better brain health. That's next.